Meng Zhinyan, disdainful of my humble origins, entrusted our son's upbringing to his mentor's daughter. On the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival, my Qingwan, under the pretense of fostering courage, abandoned 6-year-old Henge in the bustling city. When we finally found him, I was soaked to the bone, feeling as if I'd cheated death. Returning to the mansion, I found Meng Zhinyan enjoying the moon in the courtyard with my Qingwan and her son, laughing and chatting like a perfect family of 3. That night, after tucking Henge into bed, I proposed a divorce. Meng Zhinyan's face darkened. "Do you know what you're saying?" My dazed mind slowly cleared, and his words, cold as ice, drifted to my ears as if through heavy curtains. "It's just a trivial matter, why make such a fuss? It was merely to build Henge's courage. We had servants following him from afar, didn't we? Did you really think he'd get lost? No matter how distressed you are, you must endure it. Jade cannot be polished into a gem without friction. Henge is timid by nature. Though Qingwan's method seems harsh, it's for his own good." His voice was not loud, but his gaze was calm yet profound, carrying the oppressive aura of someone who'd held power for years. In the 6 years since returning to the capital, Meng Zhinyan's official career had flourished, and his temperament had grown sharper, more authoritarian, and utterly unfeeling. I looked up at him, a sharp pain piercing my heart. On the Mid-Autumn Festival, a time for family reunion, I'd nearly lost my child forever. Henge was my most precious treasure, he was my life. How could Meng Zhinyan not know that? He also knew my Qingwan was tormenting Henge, yet he'd allowed it. Yesterday, Meng Zhinyan had invited several friends to the mansion to admire chrysanthemums. As the wine flowed, someone joked about testing Henge's studies. Henge stumbled through reciting a poem of nearly 100 characters, while my Qingwan's son Zheng Lin recited it fluently in one go. Henge's little face turned pale with terror. In front of everyone, Meng Zhinyan had been thoroughly humiliated. Today's incident was his punishment. I thought of Henge huddled in a corner, trembling uncontrollably and too frightened to speak. When we found him tonight, my gaze fixed firmly on Meng Zhinyan's face, I refused to back down for the first time. What if something terrible had happened to Henge tonight? What would you have done then? The candle flame crackled and popped. Meng Zhinyan froze, then let out a derisive laugh. "Qingwan always acts with caution. Besides, I was here, I would never have let that happen." His words were absurd. He'd ordered servants to follow from a distance, yet he'd returned to the mansion with my Qingwan and her son. If disaster had struck, by the time the servants rushed back to report, it would have been too late. Meng Zhinyan underestimated the resolve of a mother protecting her child. If anything had truly happened to Henge tonight, I would have grabbed a knife and fought him to the death. Perhaps noticing how pale I looked, Meng Zhinyan finally softened his tone. "When I was a child, I was mischievous and hated studying. My father was equally strict with me. A parent's love for their child means planning for their distant future. I am Henge's biological father, I only want what's best for him. Don't be wronged." Meng Zhinyan knew full well the truth. As an orphan with no family to turn to, I had nowhere to go if I left the Meng mansion, and Henge, as the Meng family's eldest grandson, could never stay with me. He thought I would always compromise for the sake of this weakness, but this time, he was wrong. Life had been too smooth for him, so smooth that he'd forgotten. 6 years ago, when the old Meng family case was reopened and his future hung in the balance, Meng Zhinyan, fearing I and our unborn child would be implicated, had personally written a divorce letter. He'd signed it and pressed his fingerprint. To this day, that letter still lay at the bottom of my dowry chest. #2. Meng Zhinyan left for the bathhouse to wash up. I stared down at the little figure in my arms, my heart still pounding violently with lingering fear. Henge's breathing gradually evened out, tiny tears still clinging to his eyelashes. My arms had long gone numb, but I couldn't bear to put him down. It was a bitter irony. Over 6 years as mother and son, we'd had few moments of such closeness. I'd suffered a severe hemorrhage during Henge's difficult birth, leaving my health severely compromised. As soon as Henge turned 1, my mother-in-law had forcibly taken him to raise herself, claiming I was incompetent at caring for him. I'd cried day and night from longing, but my protests had been futile. Meng Zhinyan had comforted me. "Arjun, I know you're heartbroken, but Hanga's upbringing is a matter of great importance. Can you bear to ruin his future? I understood the unspoken meaning behind his words, years ago. The Meng family had been involved in a corruption scandal and exiled. It was I, a lowly country orphan, who'd supported and cared for them until the case was overturned. A year after our marriage, the Meng family's name was cleared, and they were restored to favor. For a time, Meng Zhinyan and I were hailed as a model couple in the capital, sharing hardships and prosperity, a rare marriage of gratitude and loyalty. But when it came to Hanga, the standards changed. How could the eldest grandson of a noble family be raised by a woman of humble birth? For Hanga's future, I'd had no choice but to let him go, swallowing my pain. At first, Meng Zhinyan had truly cared for both Hanga and me, pitying my longing for our son. He'd sent Hanga to stay with me whenever my mother-in-law left for temple prayers. The little boy would run toward me laughing, and I'd rush to catch him in my arms. The warmth of his small body would melt all my grievances away. When Hanga turned 3 and began his studies, Meng Zhinyan, hiding it from his mother, had set up a table for me outside the schoolroom so I could watch him learn. The teacher, being elderly, would always take a nap after eating the pastries I brought at noon. During those precious moments of leisure, Hanga and I would find all sorts of ways to play, flying kites, kicking shuttlecocks, playing hide and seek. Meng Zhinyan would watch us with a smile, his eyes filled with tenderness and affection. On his days off, he'd carry Hanga on his shoulders and hold my hand as we wandered the markets. Perhaps because I'd worried endlessly about Meng Zhinyan during the reopening of the old case. Hanga had been startled while still in my womb. He'd grown up introverted and quiet, not fond of speaking. My mother-in-law had disapproved, but Meng Zhinyan would hold Hanga proudly, saying he was wise in his silence and no worse than any other child. But when had things changed? It had likely started a year ago, when my Qingwan arrived in the capital with Zheng Lin. She was the daughter of Meng Zhinyan's beloved mentor. My family had fallen on hard times, exiled for a crime, and my Qingwan had divorced her husband after marrying badly. Pitying her loneliness, my mother-in-law had invited her to stay at the mansion. But my Qingwan had insisted on earning her keep, volunteering to be Hanga's tutor and accepting a monthly stipend from the family estate. She was renowned for her talent and taught Hanga diligently. Naturally, my mother-in-law and Meng Zhinyan were delighted, but I saw less and less of Hanga. Several maids who'd attended to him were suddenly sold off by my mother-in-law for unknown reasons. The new maids were strangers to me. I couldn't even enter the schoolroom, let alone inquire about Hanga's well-being. I'd confronted my Qingwan, but she'd silenced me with one sentence: "Study requires peace and quiet. The master has approved this arrangement." My Qingwan claimed excellence comes from diligence, not play. The little wooden boat I'd carved by hand for Hanga was returned to me before he'd even seen it. When Hanga cried and begged to see me, my Qingwan told my mother-in-law that as the young master grew older, he was too influenced by his mother's softness and would never learn to be independent. Because of that, my mother-in-law revoked even our monthly visits on the 1st and 15th days of the lunar calendar, ordering Hanga to focus solely on his studies. Hanga's academic progress was rapid, but he was like a seedling deprived of water, growing increasingly dull and listless. The light in the 6-year-old's eyes faded little by little. I watched in agony. But Meng Zhinyan dismissed my concerns. Studying and understanding principles naturally cultivates calmness. Zheng Lin is only 2 years older, yet his words and deeds are already proper. Hanga, by contrast, is simply unteachable. With Zheng Lin as a comparison, Meng Zhinyan grew more disappointed in Hanga's timidity, warning me sternly, "Only strict teachers can produce outstanding students. Don't let your feminine compassion ruin Hanga's future, for his sake." I'd swallowed all my heartache and endured, again and again, until today when I finally saw my Qingwan's true colors. She was deliberately ruining Hanga. #3. Early the next morning, my Qingwan came to apologize. "Last night, I acted impetuously without careful thought, scaring Hanga. It was all my fault." Her words were sincere, every sentence a confession of guilt. Her eyes glistened with tears, looking delicate and pitiful. I continued with my work, ignoring her completely. My Qingwan froze for a moment, then nudged Jing Lin gently. The boy immediately knelt down, begging for his mother's forgiveness. Meng Zhinyan arrived just in time to see this scene. He instantly stepped in front of my Qingwan and her son, his voice cold and threatening. Qingwan only acted out of good intentions. Why are you being so unforgiving, stirring up trouble in the family? A familiar bitterness welled up in my nose, suppressing the churning emotions. I stared directly into his eyes and said coldly, I must seek justice for Henge. My Qingwan tugged at Meng Zhinyan's sleeve, softening her voice. Madam is right, you deserve to vent your anger. I'll go ask the old madam to let me resign and leave today. Meng Zhinyan frowned, about to speak when my mother-in-law's loud voice boomed. Nonsense, I'd like to see who dares to send Wanna away. She had gone to the temple to pray yesterday and only returned today. Whatever the servants had told her, she looked at me with anger. In my opinion, Henge's timidity is inherent, he gets it from his mother. Wanna, no matter how hard you try to teach him, it's useless. Her words were like a knife to my heart. I could barely stand. Meng Zhinyan supported me, sighing, Mother, please watch your words. Arjun is just heartbroken over Henge, her concern has clouded her judgment. Qingwan, offer Arjun a cup of tea, and this matter will be laid to rest. He arbitrarily forgave my Qingwan on my behalf. When the teacup was handed to me, I did not hesitate. I raised my hand and splashed the tea at her. Meng Zhinyan, standing beside her, was also splattered all over. My mother-in-law gasped, and Meng Zhinyan's face turned livid with rage. My Qingwan had been right. For Henge's sake, I would get this anger off my chest. I no longer cared about anything else. In a few more days, once everything was arranged, I would take Henge and leave. 4. Meng Zhinyan stayed angry all day, returning to the courtyard only at sunset. He said my Qingwan had insisted on leaving, making it all the way to the pier before my mother-in-law rushed to persuade her to come back. If you're still upset, I'm at fault too. You can beat or scold me as you wish. His gaze lingered on my face for a moment, his voice cooling. Qingwan is a widow with a child, life has already been hard enough for her. Why do you keep making things difficult for her? I clenched the handkerchief in my hand, a bitter taste rising in my throat. This was the first time he had apologized to me, and it was for another woman. As we spoke, Henge slowly woke up. He had been plagued by nightmares last night and had only fallen asleep recently. Perhaps hearing our argument, he looked up at me with his small face and said softly, Mother, Henge is fine, don't blame father. That one sentence shattered the resolve I had struggled to maintain since last night. He glanced cautiously at Meng Zhinyan, summoning up his courage to defend himself awkwardly. Father, even though I was very scared last night, I really didn't cry. Does that mean I'm a man now? Meng Zhinyan's expression softened. He stared at Henge and nodded slowly. Henge stretched out his hand from my arms, grabbed Meng Zhinyan's sleeve, and shook it gently, asking timidly, Father, can you like me a little more? You don't have to like me as much as you like Brother Lin, just a little more than before. Okay. The child's innocent words echoed in the silent room. A sharp ache twisted in my heart. I couldn't help but pity his longing for his father's love. Meng Zhinyan knelt down in front of Henge, his Adam's apple bobbing as he said gently, It was father's fault for making you sad. It won't happen again. He looked up and noticed the scattered jewelry on my table. What are you packing these for? I quickly gathered them up and put them in my jewelry box. I heard from the elders that gold and silver can calm one's nerves. I'm preparing them to soothe Henge. Meng Zhinyan didn't think much of it, after pondering for a moment. He finally conceded, once Henge recovers, send him to White Bird Academy. White Bird Academy was renowned throughout the capital. Its headmaster was a great scholar of the age, advocating teaching students in accordance with their aptitude and focusing on inspiring wisdom. Admission was extremely selective, only dozens of students were accepted each year. Even with Meng Zhinyan's current official position, securing a spot would require no small amount of favor and influence. I lowered my eyes to the obedient Henge in my arms and finally agreed, very well, 5. In the end, the spot did not go to Henge. Meng Zhinyan had lost a precious ancient inkstone. His study was off limits to everyone except himself. After Henge had been frightened last time, Meng Zhinyan, feeling guilty, had allowed him to read in the study. The ancient inkstone was found in Hunger's school bag when I arrived. Hunger had already been kneeling on the ground for who knew how long. His small body trembled with fear, his voice shaking. "Mother, believe me, I didn't steal anything." Tears filled my eyes at his cry. My Qingwan sighed deeply, looking heartbroken. "I teach both boys equally. Just the other day, Lina returned a lost purse without hesitation. But today, Hunger hid the inkstone in Lina's bag, trying to frame him. I picked up Hunger, my teeth nearly grinding together. The matter hasn't been investigated yet. How dare you jump to conclusions?" Meng Xinyan slammed his palm on the table, his eyes blazing with anger. Lina saw it with his own eyes. "We have the stolen goods and the culprit. How long are you going to spoil him?" My Qingwan lowered her eyes, hiding the glint in them, and spoke even more earnestly. "Calm down, my lord. Hunger is pure-hearted. He must have been instigated, wanting to get back at Lina for the Lantern Festival incident. It's understandable." Slap. I strode forward and slapped my Qingwan hard across the face with all my strength. "Do you really think I don't know all the tricks you've played on Hunger this past year?" I turned to Meng Xinyan. "Can't you see who's really sowing discord? You'd rather believe them than let Hunger defend himself." Meng Xinyan stared at me in disbelief, his veins bulging on his forehead, his breath uneven. "Stubborn fool. Give the Whitebird Academy spot to Lina. With such a bad character, Hunger would only bring shame to me." He took a deep breath and issued an ultimatum. "Since you're determined to protect this unteachable boy, pack your things tomorrow and take him to the village estate to reflect. You two can only come back when you've admitted your mistakes." Faced with Meng Xinyan's disgusted gaze, my heart was completely numb. As the maid helped me leave, my Qingwan hung her head, her eyes glistening with tears, but the corners of her mouth curled up in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. I had no time to appreciate her triumph. I hurried back to my room with Hunger. By the time my mother-in-law arrived upon hearing the news, Hunger and I had already packed our luggage and boarded the carriage waiting at the back gate. #6. Meng Xinyan gradually sensed that something was amiss. In the heat of the moment, he'd spoken without thinking. Watching the carriage fade into the distance, an unfamiliar unease settled in his chest. Arjun had always been gentle and quiet, rarely showing such stubbornness. Could he really have wronged mother and son? He'd intended to investigate, but official duties kept him fully occupied, leaving him no time to spare. By the time he'd wrapped up his work, half a month had passed. Meng Xinyan traveled to the village estate in person, regardless of what had happened. He needed to bring them back first. The estate's conditions were far inferior to the mansion, and deep down, he couldn't bear to see them suffer. To his shock, when he arrived, the steward looked confused. "Master, Madam and the young master never came here." Meng Xinyan thought he'd misheard, but after confirming repeatedly, he realized Shenzhen and Hunger had truly never arrived. His breathing grew heavy, his mind in turmoil. He hastily sent men to search for them. He returned to the mansion in a daze, only to find my Qingwan and Zheng Lin waiting at the gate, smiling warmly. Meng Xinyan was irritable, his mind preoccupied, so his expression was naturally grim. My Qingwan noticed his mood and, after inquiring about what had happened, went to apologize to the old madam that night. "It's all Lina's fault for speaking the truth in public, driving a wedge between you and Madam. But Madam's temper is also too fiery. How could she act out of anger like this?" Her unfinished words enraged the old madam. Slamming her teacup down in front of her son, she shouted, "That foolish woman thinks she can blackmail us by taking Hunger away. She's delusional. Without the Meng family, they're nothing. The Meng family has no room for a woman who doesn't know her place and uses her child as a bargaining chip. If you still recognize me as your mother, write a divorce letter immediately and cast Shenzhen aside." A divorce letter. Meng Xinyan's heart jolted, sudden memories resurfacing, recalling the jewelry on the table that day. A faint suspicion took hold. When he retrieved the old divorce letter from the bottom of his chest, cold sweat broke out on his back. The crimson official seal on the paper burned like a brand against his fingertips. He collapsed into a chair, almost drained of strength. The ups and downs of the Meng family over the years had taught him the importance of political maneuvering and smooth diplomacy. He'd hoped his son would become a dragon among men, and his frustration with Henga's timidity had made him overly strict. As for Qingwan, their childhood friendship had led him to offer his support. He'd believed her efforts with Henga were well-intentioned. Arjun hadn't understood, so she'd resented him. He'd always thought that with time, she'd come around. He'd never imagined that the woman who'd always obeyed him would secretly divorce him and run away with their son. It hit him like a thunderbolt, shattering his composure. A widow and her child adrift in the world, he dared not think of the dangers they might face. He urgently dispatched more men to search for them. Day and night, by the flickering candlelight, he paced back and forth, rubbing his brows, anxiously awaiting news. He never expected that this wait would last 10 years. On this day, he'd waited again at the Shun residence, failing once more to meet the young imperial engineer. Word had spread of this 16-year-old boy surnamed Shun, whose talent in shipbuilding was nothing short of miraculous. With the Eastern Sea Navy weak and pirates plaguing the coasts, the emperor had been losing sleep over the crisis. The ship designs the boy had submitted were twice as fast as the old vessels and could carry 30% more cannons. He'd quickly gained the emperor's favor, destined for great things. Well-informed officials had long since sought to curry favor with him. Unfortunately, this was the third time Meng Zhinian had been turned away. As he prepared to leave, a familiar elegant figure passed through the moon gate. Meng Zhinian rubbed his eyes, staring in stunned disbelief. Arjun. #7. I turned instinctively, meeting a pair of shocked eyes. The scissors in my hand slipped half an inch, damaging the orchid plant I'd been pruning. 10 years had passed. Meng Zhinian had grown thinner, faint streaks of grey appearing at his temples, likely from years of worry. Before Henga and I returned to the capital, I'd known we'd cross paths with him eventually. I just hadn't expected it to be so soon. Arjun, Meng Zhinian's voice was hoarse. Is it really you? I lowered my eyes, hiding the churning emotions in my heart. For a long moment, there was only silence. Shenzhen, he ground my name out between his teeth, a mix of pain and resentment in his voice. After a while, he regained control, speaking solemnly. Do you know I've searched for you and Henga for 10 years? Do you have any idea how many? Seeing there was no avoiding the conversation, I looked up and cut him off calmly. Minister Meng, we divorced long ago. Meng Zhinian looked startled, but quickly masked it. I never agreed to the divorce. You left without a word, taking Henga with you. It was true I hadn't asked for his consent back then. Seeing me remain silent, Meng Zhinian rubbed his brows tiredly, his voice heavy. Sending you and Henga to the estate to reflect was thoughtless of me. I'm sure you suffered a lot these years. I won't hold the past against you, just come back with Henga. At the mention of Henga, his eyes lit up with eagerness. Where is he? Let me see him. A few days earlier, Henga had been summoned by the emperor to discuss important military matters and hadn't returned home yet, involving classified military secrets. I couldn't elaborate, only saying he was on official business. Meng Zhinian thought for a moment, his gaze falling on the orchid I was tending. I see, he nodded, a hint of understanding in his tone. I've heard this young imperial engineer shares your surname. Could he be a distant relative of yours? Henga had taken my surname from the day he entered school. Meng Zhinian had jumped to the wrong conclusion. Seeing me remain silent, he seemed to confirm his guess, sighing, all these years, you've been holding a grudge against me. And it's Henga's future that's suffered. This young engineer is the same age as Henga, yet he's already achieved so much. If you'd been able to endure back then, letting him study under famous teachers with the Meng family's support, he wouldn't be in such a predicament today. I heard the regret in his words. He clearly thought Henga and I had lived in poverty over the years, relying on others. Meng Zhinian lowered his voice, making plans for Henga without hesitation. Henga is still a Meng by blood. Living under someone else's roof isn't a long-term solution. In 2 years, when he's old enough to marry, what will happen then? He proceeded to decide our fate unilaterally. These next few days, you can resign from your employer, pack your things, and come back to the mansion with me. I'll find a position for Henga. I almost laughed, a mischievous thought suddenly taking hold. I asked abruptly, if Henga had achieved nothing, would you still want him to return to the Meng family? Meng Zhinian froze, his lips moving, but no words came out. After 10 years, He hadn't changed at all. My smile faded. And I said seriously, "You don't need to worry about Hanga's future, Minister Meng. Please leave." #8. Meng Zhinian called me ungrateful and stormed off. That night, when Hanga returned home, I told him about the encounter. Leaving the Meng mansion had been my decision alone. Now that he was grown, he deserved to make his own choices. I wanted to leave the final decision up to him. Hanga looked at me, his eyes clear and resolute. "He is my biological father. But it was you who raised me, mother." Though mature beyond his years, Hanga rarely showed such childlike dependence. "No matter what, I will always stand by your side. Without you, there would be no Hanga today." Memories flooded my mind, a sharp ache in my nose as tears threatened to fall. As we spoke, dusk fell, and a sudden downpour began. A sparrow stumbled in the wind and rain. Its mother swooped down hastily, spreading her soaking wings to shield it beneath her. Watching them, my thoughts drifted back 10 years, to the day we left the mansion. As our carriage exited the city gates, a similar downpour had begun. The female bodyguard I'd hired had asked where we were going. Holding Hanga tightly in my arms, I'd felt lost. It wasn't until I saw the small wooden boat he clutched tightly in his hand that I made up my mind. To Jiangnan, to see the big ships Hanga had dreamed of. I rented a small courtyard near the ferry. Hanga would sit on a stool by the riverbank, watching the passing ships for hours on end. After being wrongfully accused of theft, Hanga had grown even quieter. Only then did the liveliness of a child shine through. He'd fetch paper and ink, quietly sketching ship designs. At first, they were clumsy outlines, but gradually, the pages filled with mathematical symbols and calculations. He begged me to find books on shipbuilding, spending every day immersed in carving wooden ship models. The townsfolk wondered why he didn't attend school, saying such trivial crafts were no match for the imperial examinations, urging me not to ruin his future. I smiled without responding. If they'd seen the gloomy, withdrawn child he'd been in the Meng mansion, they'd never have spoken such words. As time passed, my heart settled. In truth, that first year had been torment. I'd questioned whether my decision had been right for Hanga. If we'd stayed in the Meng mansion, he'd still be a spoiled young master, destined for the imperial examinations and a smooth official career, barring any accidents. With me, a commoner with no status, he'd have to fight for everything on his own. I'd even considered taking him back, but Hanga had twisted the hem of his robe anxiously, asking, "Mother, do you only love me if I'm good at studying, just like father?" His words were like a fine needle, pricking the softest part of my heart. I put down my needlework and stroked his head. "You're mistaken, Hanga. I love you for who you are, not for what you do. You don't have to be obedient or clever to deserve love. You don't have to meet my expectations to be cherished. Love isn't a choice, it's unconditional acceptance." When Hanga was 8, he suddenly told me seriously that he wanted to go to school. Half a year later, his teacher praised his exceptional talent in mathematics, recommending that I seek out Master Liu of Pine Mountain, a retired master craftsman renowned for his expertise in natural philosophy and engineering. Though he was notoriously eccentric and refused visitors, Hanga and I visited him repeatedly, only to be turned away each time. Eventually, I swallowed my pride, bringing homemade food to bribe the mute servant attending Master Liu. Earning a chance to enter the courtyard. Through the window, Master Liu caught a glimpse of Hanga using twigs to scribble mathematical calculations in the sand, and was astonished. From that day on, he made an exception, accepting Hanga as his last disciple. The elderly master and the young boy formed a close friendship bonded by their love of mathematics. Earlier this year, Hanga's book * New Theories of Ships and Vessels *, submitted to the emperor through Master Liu, caught the imperial eye. The emperor summoned him personally, watching a demonstration of his ship model before bestowing upon him the title Young Imperial Engineer in court. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye. The child who'd once needed my protection had grown into my anchor. #9. Meng Zhinian seethed with anger alone. Though he hadn't seen Hanga, he could picture the boy growing up timid and withdrawn, filling him with further frustration. After finishing his official duties, a close colleague invited him for drinks. Noticing his foul mood, the colleague assumed he'd been snubbed at the Shun residence and comforted him. the young imperial engineer. Personally summoned by the emperor to consult on state secrets, how could he be easy to meet? Meng Xinyan snapped out of his daze, forcing a smile to brush off the comment. He recalled the Minister of Work's undisguised admiration for the young man when they'd spoken the previous day. The emperor valued talent but was cautious. Only a handful of senior officials had met him, and all that was known was his surname, Shun. Meng Xinyan felt a mix of envy, jealousy, and regret. If Henge had stayed with him, he might never have achieved what this young engineer had, but at least he could have followed Zheng Lin's path, sitting for the imperial examinations, securing an official position, and walking the proper path. Too much maternal indulgence spoils a child, he thought bitterly. Henge was ruined by that woman. As they spoke, a plain-clothed elder stopped by the corridor, smiling over at them. Meng Xinyan hurried forward, bowing deeply. Though Master Liu held no official title, he had been the late emperor's teacher and was widely renowned. Word had it he'd come to the capital specifically to arrange his disciple's future. Meng Xinyan sighed inwardly, flattering him. I've long admired your reputation, Master. I've heard your disciple is an unparalleled genius. Your ability to recognize talent is truly admirable, sir. Master Liu stroked his beard, studying Meng Xinyan with a meaningful look. My disciple is just a little more obsessed than others, willing to pour his heart and soul into what he loves. He had a difficult childhood, he added, changing the subject. If not for his mother's perseverance, protecting him from harm and sacrificing everything for him, he would never be where he is today. Meng Xinyan didn't think deeply, dismissing it as a common sentiment. A mother's love for her child is truly touching. I'm sure Mrs. Shun is an extraordinary woman to have raised such a brilliant young man. His words were sincere, but he couldn't help feeling a twinge of bitterness. If only Arjun had half of Mrs. Shun's wisdom back then. Master Liu's hand paused mid-stroke, barely hiding the sneer in his eyes. He invited Meng Xinyan to his 60th birthday banquet in 3 days, emphasizing, my disciple and his mother will be there too. He paused deliberately. What a coincidence, my disciple is from the same hometown as you, Minister Meng. Both of you are from Huainan. Meng Xinyan was overjoyed, feeling an even closer connection to the young imperial engineer. He completely missed the hidden meaning in Master Liu's words. #10. On the day of Master Liu's 60th birthday banquet, the capital enjoyed a rare spell of clear weather. As I stepped down from the carriage, I happened to run into my Qingwan. She was dressed in elegant finery, her beauty unchanged. Zheng Lin had recently topped the provincial imperial examinations, and she was riding high on his success. Seeing me, she looked surprised. Sister Shen, what are you doing here? Don't you know that even the young guests at today's banquet must have passed the preliminary imperial examination? The banquet was attended by prominent nobles and disciples. My presence was indeed unexpected. Her eyes flicked past my empty shoulders, and her smile widened. Where's Henge? Then again, such an academic occasion would only embarrass him if he came. I ignored her, walking straight toward the mansion gate. Master Liu's steward had been waiting for me. Seeing me, he bowed respectfully. Mrs. Shen, you've arrived. My master specifically instructed that you are an honored guest. Please come to the flower hall first. My Qingwan froze, her smile faltering, after chatting with Master Liu in the flower hall. I turned around the corridor corner and found Meng Xinyan waiting for me. He presumably thought I'd come to help with the banquet preparations. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, he blocked my path. Arjun, I know you're still angry with me. I've thought a lot these past few days. Henge may not be as clever as Lina, but he's still my son, my blood. Come back to the mansion with me. Let Henge return to the Meng family. I'll discipline him properly from now on. Even if he doesn't excel in his studies, he can still live a life of ease and luxury. After all, Lina will uphold the Meng family's honor. I fell silent, finding his words absurd. I'd inquired about Meng Xinyan's affairs recently. I'd heard he'd adopted Zheng Lin as his godson, sparing no effort to cultivate him, inviting famous teachers personally, taking him to banquets with senior officials, and teaching him the ways of officialdom firsthand. It was clear he'd pinned all his hopes of reviving the Meng family on Zheng Lin. I stared directly into his eyes, reminding him again, Meng Xinyan, I don't want to go back, and neither does Henge. Drop it. A flash of surprise crossed Meng Xinyan's face. He'd thought his concession would make me give in too. Arjun, you've said this out of anger twice now. I didn't bother arguing further, turning to leave, passing through several ceremonial gates. I entered the courtyard where the banquet was held. Filled with laughter and chatter, Henge had left early in the morning to fetch a birthday gift for his master. He should be arriving soon. Sure enough, from a distance, I heard Master Liu's booming voice praising him. To have a disciple like Shun Heng in my old age is truly divine. His ingenuity and understanding in engineering and craftsmanship far surpass my own when I was young. The name Shun Heng made the corners of my lips lift in a faint smile. At that moment, a clear, affectionate voice called out, "Mother." Everyone turned toward the sound, and there stood a young man in a moon-white scholar's robe, smiling as he approached, tall and straight with clear brows and bright eyes. He was none other than the accomplished disciple Master Liu had praised so highly. The autumn scenery in the garden seemed to brighten in his presence. When Meng Xinyan recognized the boy's face, he froze completely. Henge, 11, at the ladies' table. A noblewoman who had known me in the past hesitated, then called out, "Madam Meng." Her words drew the attention of the other ladies around her. The divorce between Meng Xinyan and me had not been publicly announced, considered an embarrassment for the Meng family. They had only said that Henge was ill, and I had taken him away to seek medical treatment. Before I could respond, the noblewoman hurried forward, taking my hand with a smile. "It really is you, Madam Meng, everyone. Look, this is the mother of the young imperial engineer." Realization dawned on the group. The woman who had left the Meng family 10 years ago had returned to the capital, and her son had become the emperor's personally acclaimed young imperial engineer. The ladies gathered around naturally, praising Henge's intelligence and commending my skill in raising him. The noblewoman who had first recognized me even poured me a cup of tea, asking in detail how I had nurtured such an extraordinary child. Surrounded by their well-wishes, I busied myself with replies. Amidst the praise and chatter, only my Qingwan and her son sat with ashen faces, struggling to hide their jealousy. Meng Xinyan was equally stunned, his gaze complex, his face pale. He was about to speak when a shrill announcement rang out, "An imperial edict has arrived." In an instant, the garden fell silent. Everyone hurried to their feet and knelt on the ground. The eunuch delivering the edict first congratulated Master Liu on his birthday, then walked straight to Henge, unfurling the bright yellow scroll. "To Shun Heng, blessed with divine talent and unparalleled craftsmanship, your contributions to shipbuilding shall benefit the nation for millennia. By imperial decree, you are appointed supervisor of the imperial workshop, overseeing the construction of warships. Additionally, you are granted the title of compiler of the Hanlin Academy, with permission to enter the palace at any time to advise the emperor. To Shenzhen, through your wise and benevolent guidance, you have raised a gifted son. In accordance with imperial regulations, you are hereby conferred the title of 5th-rank noble lady, authorized to wear the official robes of your rank, in recognition of your virtue." I was stunned. I had no idea Henge had requested an imperial title for me. Henge took the edict steadily, then turned to help me stand. From start to finish, he did not glance at Meng Xinyan, who knelt nearby. As we prepared to leave, the eunuch finally noticed Meng Xinyan, looking surprised. "Pardon my poor eyesight, Minister Meng, I didn't see you there. Your son is young yet accomplished, favored by the emperor. Surely you must share in this honor." He paused, as if suddenly remembering something, and laughed behind his sleeve. "How forgetful of me. I'd forgotten you divorced Lady Shen 10 years ago. The son follows the mother, so today's promotion and rewards for Supervisor Shen bring glory to Lady Shen's family, not yours." These words completely shattered the dignity Meng Xinyan had struggled to maintain. Whispers erupted around them. Meng Xinyan pulled his gaze away from Henge as if burned, his body swaying slightly, nearly collapsing. I was surrounded by ladies offering their congratulations. By the time I thought to look for him again, he was already gone. 12. When Meng Xinyan returned home in a daze, his mother stopped him. "I heard from Qingwan that Shenzhen and Henge are back," she said. I suppose life was too hard for them as orphans and widows. They've finally swallowed their pride and returned. You must bring Hanga back, no matter what. He may not be promising in his studies, nothing compared to Lina, but he's still the Meng family's legitimate grandson. He can't remain homeless. As for Shenzhen, she had the nerve to leave back then. If she wants to return now, she must cast aside her arrogance. We'll demote her from wife to concubine, only then can she enter the Meng mansion. It was only at this moment that Meng Zhinyan suddenly realized how deeply his mother had always looked down on Shenzhen, and because she despised Shenzhen, she had also looked down on Hanga. He collapsed into a chair, laughing bitterly. Deciding to abandon all pretense, Hanga is now the emperor's personally appointed young imperial engineer. Arjun is a fifth-rank noble lady. Both mother and son are showered with imperial honors. Dare I ask, Mother, how exactly do you plan to condescend to them? Perhaps you should go kneel at the Shun residence gate. Maybe Arjun will take pity on your sincere apology and let Hanga return to the Meng family, in the first year after their exile. His mother would have died of illness if not for Shenzhen's constant care and support. Over the years, his mother had tried desperately to match him with my Qingwan, even going so far as to drug his food, but he had never yielded. In the end, his mother had no choice but to adopt my Qingwan as her goddaughter. Resenting him deeply for it, she had hoped he would remarry and have more children, so he could completely forget about Shenzhen and Hanga. Meng Zhinyan closed his eyes slowly, a clear image of Shenzhen's graceful figure appearing in his mind. He had to admit, after all these years, she was still the one in his heart. His laughter faded, replaced by a profound sense of desolation. In the end, he was no different from his mother, blind and foolish, mistaking a pearl for a fish's eye, ungrateful, trampling sincere love into the dirt. He deserved to suffer the consequences. ## 13. Meng Zhinyan came to see Hanga and me several times. Following Hanga's instructions, the gatekeeper turned him away each time, until the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival, when Hanga and I returned from the market. Meng Zhinyan was waiting outside the mansion, holding a food box. In the distance, the streets were bright with lanterns and filled with faint laughter. Only the corner where he stood was cold and desolate, like frost. His gaze fell gently on Hanga and me, filled with hope. Hanga, these are your favorite jujube paste mooncakes. I waited in line for an hour. Before he could finish, Hanga stepped back, avoiding his outstretched hand, and refused firmly. Minister Meng, you're mistaken. It's Zheng Lin who likes jujube paste mooncakes, not me. Meng Zhinyan was struck dumb, the food box slipping from his hand with a crash. Hanga was now taller than Meng Zhinyan, who had to tilt his head to look up at him. I was wrong about everything in the past, Meng Zhinyan said, his voice trembling. You and your mother suffered so much, but we're still family. I don't ask for your forgiveness, I only ask for a chance to make amends. Hanga took my hand, continuing to walk forward. Mother, let's go. The moonlight tonight was too cold, too bright, exposing everything for what it was. Hanga's grievances and resentment, Meng Zhinyan's remorse and shame. I suddenly thought of the mid-autumn night 10 years ago. It was as if an old saying had come true. The fruit of today is the seed of yesterday. Some things needed to be said face to face, once and for all. Hanga, go back first. I have something to say to Minister Meng. Hanga looked at me deeply, then nodded and left. I turned to face Meng Zhinyan. In truth, Hanga did love jujube paste mooncakes once. A spark of hope flared in Meng Zhinyan's eyes, but that was when he was 6 years old. He hasn't liked them for a long time. The spark faded instantly. I looked directly into his eyes and asked, Meng Zhinyan, if I hadn't taken Hanga away 10 years ago, do you think he would have achieved what he has today? ## 14. The air froze. Meng Zhinyan's breath hitched, and he had no words to reply. I don't think he would have. I continued, not waiting for his answer. At that chrysanthemum appreciation banquet, Hanga was tested in public and failed to compare to Zheng Lin, humiliating you. You flew into a rage, never knowing that my Qingwan had secretly tutored Zheng Lin in advance, letting him memorize that poem until it rolled off his tongue. Hanga had only read it twice, but you thought he was lazy and punished him by making him stay after school for half an hour. On my birthday, Hanga secretly carved a wooden hairpin for me. But my Qingwan accused him of wasting his time on trivial things, confiscated all his carving knives, and you made him kneel in the ancestral hall for an hour because of it. That inkstone Zheng Lin framed him deliberately. Heng saw it with his own eyes. But did you give him a chance to defend himself? And that mid-autumn festival, my Qingwan deliberately abandoned Heng in the busy market. He was chased by wild dogs into an alley. Scared out of his wits. Do you know that even now, at 16, Heng still wakes up screaming from nightmares of your cold, indifferent gaze? My words were sharp, one after another. Meng Xinyan's face turned paler by the minute. I hadn't failed to mention my Qingwan and her son's malicious intentions to him, but every time, he'd dismissed it as my jealousy, accusing me of being unable to tolerate others. Over these 10 years, having traveled far and experienced much, I'd finally come to understand, the root of all our troubles lay with Meng Xinyan. If he had truly respected and cherished me as his wife, how could he have allowed his mother to mistreat me, my Qingwan to belittle me, and Heng to be neglected? If he had truly loved Heng and me, how could he have blindly trusted my Qingwan and her son? These were all facts. If he'd cared to investigate, the truth would have been easy to uncover. Back then, I'd acted on a mother's intuition. If I didn't take Heng away, the high walls of the Meng mansion would have trapped and destroyed us both. I summed it up for him. If Heng and I had stayed, sooner or later, you would have grown to dislike us. And if Heng hadn't achieved what he has today, you wouldn't be feeling this remorse. Meng Xinyan seemed to sense what I was about to say, cutting me off hastily. That's not true. For 10 years, I've thought of you and Heng every day. I was foolish. I was wrong, but I'll change. Arjun, please forgive me, both of you. I shook my head. No, today, Heng has a beloved master, loyal friends, and many people who love him. He doesn't need you anymore. Cold sweat broke out on Meng Xinyan's forehead. He stumbled backward, retreating half a step. My gaze lingered on his face, studying him thoughtfully. In truth, Heng looked a great deal like him, especially when he furrowed his brows. It was almost identical. For a moment, I felt a bitter irony. Heng had grown into the man Meng Xinyan had always hoped he'd be, but none of it had anything to do with him. Raising a child is the truest test of love. A child always knows who truly cares for them. The love and devotion you pour into them is exactly what they'll return. There's no fairer reckoning in the world. ###. 15. The next time I heard of Meng Xinyan, he'd been demoted. It began when the Meng clan elders accused Heng of being unfilial, refusing to recognize his biological father and violating moral principles. They'd intended to pressure him behind closed doors, forcing him to return to the Meng family, but Heng had gone straight to the palace, pleading his case before the emperor with unshakable resolve. When my mother divorced Minister Meng, the divorce letter clearly stated, "The son shall follow the mother, from this day forward. Our fortunes and honors shall be separate." For 10 years, Minister Meng gave me life, but he provided no care or upbringing. A father who fails in his duties cannot demand filial piety. Today, I bear the surname Shen. I am Shen's son. The clan elders were terrified, immediately confessing that my Qingwan had incited them. The emperor, known for his wisdom, angrily denounced them, having divorced and severed all ties. How dare you use filial piety to vent your private grievances? Though the great Qi dynasty governed with filial piety as its core, a father must be kind before he can demand a son's filial piety. Meng Xinyan was demoted to Lingju for failing to manage his family and allowing his relatives to frame a loyal minister of the court. My Qingwan and her son were exiled from the capital, forbidden to return forever. Lingju was a remote land. This departure meant we would never meet again. At the time, I was sipping early spring tea with Master Liu. Stroking his beard, he sighed. "When you, a lone woman, dared to divorce and take your child away, I knew you and Heng had suffered great wrongs." The fragrance of tea wafted through the air, bringing back memories of days gone by, when I'd left with Heng. Filled with desperation and uncertainty, I'd felt adrift and terrified, but time had healed those wounds. Looking back now, I no longer felt the pain. On the day Meng Xinyan left the capital, he sent an old servant with a wooden box. Inside were neatly stacked silver notes, and beneath them, many of Heng's childhood belongings. The old servant passed on a message from Meng Zhinian, 8 simple words. After all these years, may you both be well. I accepted the box. Later, I heard that my Qingwan and her son had fallen out on their journey into exile. Having lost his academic title, Zheng Lin's personality had twisted. He'd become decadent, spending his days drinking and gambling. When he'd lost all their money, he'd turned violent, beating his mother. The last time anyone saw them was in Lingnan. Zheng Lin had stolen the only silver hairpin my Qingwan had left, leaving her to die of illness in a dilapidated temple. She'd spent her entire life scheming for her son only to meet such a tragic end, but that was all in the past. When Henge turned 20, the emperor ordered the formation of a new navy. I accompanied him to Jeonju port, where he took up his post. Thousands of ships in the harbor, all designed by his hands. New warships cut through the boundless blue waves. The world stretched wide before us, open and free. The end.